Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of A God Shift. I'm your host, Shayna Rattler. I'm so glad that you're here today. I know this is going to be an amazing conversation, but before we get started, I need you to do me a favor. So, wherever it is that you're listening to this episode, I want you to take a screenshot. And with that screenshot, I want you to post it on your social media, tag us here at A God Shift, and then I just want to hear your biggest aha moment or your biggest takeaway from this episode. And the reason why I do that is because I know that there are a lot of believers that really want to do their part to uphold and protect Christian values, but unfortunately, everybody doesn't know where to start. And so, the more times that these episodes are shared, the more people that can be equipped with the tips and the tools and the strategies that we share here on the show. So, I want to thank you in advance for being willing to share that. I'm going to read my guest bio and we're going to get started to what I know is going to be a great conversation. My guest today is one of the world's leading experts on religious freedom and the president of International Christian Concern, also known as ICC. He's traveled to 70 plus countries and been interviewed or quoted by most major media, including the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Fox, BBC, Washington Post, CBN, and numerous others. His inspiring stories, incredible experiences, and passion for the persecuted make him an insightful and compelling speaker and guest. He loves to teach the secrets of spiritual growth derived from the hidden world of the martyrs and the persecuted. He is the author of Islam Uncensored, Last Words of the Martyrs, and a 30-day devotional called The Whisper. I'm happy to welcome to the show Jeff King.
Stacey, great to be with you today.
It's Shayna, but that's okay.
Shayna, we're going to talk about Stacey among others.
My name is, I saw something on Facebook the other day and it says my name has been mispronounced so many times, I don't even know if I'm saying it correctly.
Well, that's just my old brain because we're going to be talking about Stacey Barber among others. So it's just like,
well, hey, there we go.
up.
We'll roll with it. So I want to talk a little bit about, our religious freedoms during this episode. And I want to talk about some of the ways that those religious freedoms have been under attack. And not just our theories, right? Before we went live, as of yesterday, there were some articles that came out that shows that we were misled pertaining to the rules that we should have followed. I'm air quoting the rules that we should have followed around COVID. And so this is not just our theories. There is actually a lot of material that is out there that actually shows the agendas and some of the things that have been going on. And I read an article about you, and in that article, it said something about frogs in the kettle. Tell us about this concept.
Well, what I always say, the frog in the kettle is a very old saying that the frog, when if you put him into a thing of boiling water or into a pot of boiling water, he's going to jump out, right? But if you put them into warm water and turn it up slowly, then you get the frog cooked. They don't jump out. And that's the analogy for what is happening to us as Christians. The heat keeps turning up in the water. Now there's bubbles coming up all around us. But few Christians, or not all Christians, I don't know what the percentage is, a lot of them, we don't have any context for what's going on. We look back and there's no context for this hidden, very light, beginning with very light persecution going on. And so we don't understand that we're getting cooked. So it's just trying to wake up Christians and say, listen, we are in danger. And here's the context for what's going on. Because I deal with it overseas all the time. I see all the games that dictators and despots do. And this is what's happening here in the States.
I don't know what the answer to this is. Maybe you do. But why is it that we as Christians seem to be able to be fooled, manipulated, and deceived more than any group of people out there? Do you have any insight into how this is able to even happen? It used to be that when someone was going to try to deceive you, they really were strategic about being, under the table, behind the scenes. All of the stuff that is going on around us that is, kind of hidden in plain sight. Like, why are we so blinded and so trusting when everything we see is the opposite of what we've been taught in the Bible?
Yeah, what a great question, right? I've thought about that a lot, and there's lots of different answers, but part of it is, look, we are sheep among wolves. That's what the scripture says, and we are not of this world. If you've really converted to Christianity, you have a different driver inside, and it's kindness and it's love.
Yeah.
And but the only thing is this, the scripture only, that's only part of the message to us as believers. It's a very big part. But we're also supposed to be wise as serpents because that's who we're around. So, we're not so interested in politics, most of us, because it's a kind of a gross world, I think, the way a lot of Christians view it. And so the people in this business, they play hardball and they will use deceit and they will use scams and schemes to trick and fool. And we are sheep among wolves. And it used to be very disconcerting for me because I look back at the history of the church, I look at what's going on in our nation. And when you deal with persecution for 25 years around the world, you see a lot of horror. And it used to be so discouraging until I really understood how we win in the end. Not we, but how the Lord's team, how the Lord wins in the end. It kind of saw that. But anyways,
Yeah.
I would say that's the top shelf question or answer.
I think that's a great insight. When I was doing my research for this interview, I also read a story about a teacher who actually sued the Houston school district. Tell us about that.
Well, her name is Stacy. Great name. I love to call everyone Stacy, apparently. Now, that's Stacy Barber. And this
It's better
is,
than being called a Karen, right?
that's true. So, yeah, Stacy is a teacher in Texas, and she did, for 8 years, she did the See You at the Flag prayer event, which has become very popular over the years. And it's a thing you do before school, and the kids gather and teachers gather. Whoever gathers that's a Christian says they want to pray for the schools and the country and their state, county. And so she did that for 8 years. And then the principal all of a sudden said, "Hey, you're not allowed to do that." Well, he's basically very wrong about that. And it turned into a lawsuit. So now there's a lawsuit against the school board, and they're going to have to back down. So they already did it first. And they said, you know what, you're right. Because the teacher she does have religious freedom. This is outside school hours. She's not even on the job. So the school can't compel her to do or not do something according to her religion. And that's really the simple part of it. But anyways, the school board hardened their stance and the principal hardened their stance. And so now they're going to go into court and that decision will get reversed.
Are you seeing other situations like this that are going on?
Oh boy. Yeah, around the world, around Western democracies, particularly Europe. I think most people know that Europe is worse than we are. England, UK, Canada. Oh my gosh, the cases. Where you see, I've interviewed all kinds of people. The famous one was Päivi Räsänen in Finland. She's a congresswoman, basically. It's called an MP, but 20-year congresswoman, and she tweets something on her private social media about the church in Finland supporting a gay pride march. Kind of like, what is the church doing? That's pretty much what she said.
Yeah.
And then the chief prosecutor of the country went after her and got the police involved. The police said, there's no crime here. And then the chief prosecutor said, no, we're going to go after her. And then they try to convict her. They bring her to court. She's now on her third round of this, where the courts say there's no crime. They throw her out. So, and this is a very typical process. Or again, another woman in the UK arrested just for praying silently near an abortion clinic. And then just recently, I mean, these cases are on and on in the States, but the most recent one is in Carlsbad. The mayor said that the chaplains, so they allow chaplains of different faiths into the county government and to open invocation of prayer. And he starts dictating what the Christians can say. You can't use the name of Jesus. Well, oh my gosh, I think you're a little confused, Mayor, because look, the basic rules are kind of like what we said with Stacy, that the government can't favor or disfavor any particular sect or religion. They can't coerce, they can't control the language of those pastors. So if they're going to open, the county government and those proceedings in prayer, and they're opening it to all faiths, first of all, that's the deal. So, anyways, this is Carlsbad mayor, and he's saying you can't pray in the name of Jesus, and so I just pushed that one out. But they're all the time, Shayna.
Yeah, California is just egregious.
It is a fun place.
I was in Pasadena for a Christian conference. I don't know if you know who Che On is, but he sued the governor of California, during the whole COVID debacle and won.
Yes.
And he was just sharing with us some of the things that are being allowed or trying to be enforced in the state of California, and it's
Yeah.
just mind-blowing. And then you mentioned Canada. I was on a Zoom call a couple of months ago, and there was a school counselor who was on the Zoom call with us, and she mentioned that, and it's been a long time since I've been in school, but in school they have things that happen in the auditorium, right? Like everyone in the school comes to the auditorium to participate in whatever it is that is going on in the auditorium. And she said this particular day, there were drag queens that were in
Yes.
middle school.
Yep.
I don't know what the drag queens were doing, but the drag queens were putting on some type of something in the auditorium.
Yep.
And there were about 10 Christian students who did not want to participate. They didn't want to go into the auditorium.
Yes.
And they had all these concerns, and they were experiencing all of these emotions, and they were having all these questions and confusion. So who do you think they went to? They went to the counselor, because the last time I checked, those are the primary responsibilities of the counselor, is to help the students in
Yep.
these areas. The counselor was told that she was not allowed to counsel the students in this area. I don't know if they forced them to go back into the auditorium, if they were, penalized in some kind of way. But it's just, there's a terminology right now, like make it make sense. I don't know how you make it make sense. The things that they're saying, like you allow people in to pray, but then you tell them how they have to pray.
You
You
bet.
hire people to be counselors, and then you tell them that when students have an issue, you can't counsel them. Like it blows my mind. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to kind of shift the conversation to what we can begin to do about this. We'll be right back. God is commissioning women leaders to uphold Christian values and change the course of history for his glory, and to mobilize other women to blaze the same trail. Want to know what type of kingdom leader you are and learn specific strategies to impact change based on your type? Find out by going to kingdomtrailblazerquiz.com right now. All right, welcome back. So before the break, we've been talking about just a tip of the iceberg of what has been going on that demonstrates that our religious freedoms are under attack. So Jeff, I'm curious if you can share with us in the second half of the show. I always like to switch to, like, what are some of the things that anyone can put in place? So what can we begin to do to exercise our religious freedoms?
Yeah, it's such a big question, right? And it kind of answering that question really forces you to first of all understand, what is this kettle we're in? We kind of don't have context for it as Christians in this country. And so a lot of people, if they're not politically aware, as you said, they're sheep among wolves. And so they're just turning this way and that. So first of all, I'd say so much of our probably the wrong word, but indoctrination as Christians, or as training, was that we are practicing Niceanity. So, and the world is very happy with that, meaning that, look, our job is to be nice.
Mm.
And the only thing I'd say is it takes a real shift in worldview, because that's not really our calling. Our calling is to rescue the world. The world is dying. It's supposed to be hostile towards us. We have signed up under a different commander. We have a revolutionary message. It's not ours, it's his. And so we can't get away from that. And so there has to be a mindset that we are of a different kingdom, and that
Yes.
we march to a different tune.
That's
And
right.
that we can't nice our way into being accepted by the world. We would then have to abandon our message. Now, the world very much wants this. And that clear message we're seeing in the culture is, get out of the public square. Your job is to be nice and sit in the corner and shut up.
Yeah.
That's, and so when we cross those boundaries, that's when we start getting smacked around. And then too many people keeps, the clear message also is, keep your head down. We're going to make examples out of you, and we're going to shut you down, and it's going to cost you, just like the MP in Finland. It's going to cost you. So the clear message is, keep your head down, stay out of trouble, get out of the public square, and be nice. So we have to stop thinking that's our job, is to be nice. Our job is to bring the message of Jesus to the world. What did he say? What's the Great Commission? to go out and win and disciple. So I'd say, first of all, if you are a pastor, think about that on the broadest, in the broadest terms. What are we supposed to be doing? How many churches have you been to where they're training you to do evangelism and then building it out and having weekly meetings, etc.? There's lots of churches that talk about it, but very few. So I would tell people, don't wait for your pastor. Go talk to your pastor, but don't wait for him. Go learn how to do evangelism and then go disciple. That's our job as Christians, and we have to have that as a complete calling to our existence. This is what we're called to rescue a dying world. All around us are the dead and dying. The second is politics is a dirty business, it seems like, to a Christian. And there's a lot of history to that, or I won't go into it now, but it's a fascinating history. But we got to get over that. Politics is, if we leave politics to the worldly minded, what we're going to get is what we're experiencing. So we have to get involved in politics. And so I tell people, go run for dog catcher, go run for anything, go start serving in your party headquarters, and learn the game, get involved, and start applying yourself, and run for races as you get experience. But get involved in politics, or else we're going to have the worldly minded and those hostile to the kingdom dictating what we can do and can't do. And that's not their job, but that's where people go. Some of those are the biggies. And then just to understand, just get context on what's going on, to understand that what's going on, what we're experiencing is what Christians overseas that are persecuted experience. So the dictator or the despot overseas, they say, on one side of their mouth, they say, hey, we have religious freedom. They'll say that in China. President Xi of China would say, we have religious freedom. Now, when you get down to it, though, what that means is none of your faith can be shared. You can't come into the public square. You can't hand out Bibles. You can't tell other people about your faith. So as long as you keep it to yourself and it's in your own thought world, and you stick at home and play Christianity out between you and God, that's fine. That's called religious freedom. And if you cross those boundaries, then you're going to get canceled. You're going to get imprisoned. You're going to get beaten. We have the same things. The penalties are lesser. We lose our jobs. We get canceled from social media. But it's the same game. That's what's going on. So I always drive people back and I say, first of all, look, my cause for existence is to serve the persecuted church. And they have so much to teach us, even this, so we get context of what's going on politically, but then even spiritually. These people have suffered so much for the faith, and yet they're the deepest, most devoted followers. So we learn from them. They are our elders, and we learn from them, and they will teach us and transform our lives spiritually. So I would say go to persecution.org, sign up for our free magazine. It's a magazine that'll teach you about the persecuted, and just so you kind of get context for what's going on in the West.
I think that's great. I just want to piggyback on number two when you talked about getting involved by running for office. At the very least, if you don't have the ambitious to actually run, you can
Yeah.
still attend your school board meetings. You can still
Yes.
attend your city council meetings, because I've
100%.
said this before, but I'm just crazy enough to believe if
Yep.
there are as many of
Yep.
our voices are there as there are of opposing voices, we're likely to get something done. And I
Yep.
think, as a matter of fact, last week on my Instagram, I posted, it's not just for the politicians. Like, you can get involved in quote
Yes.
unquote politics without being a politician, but it's time to allow our voices to be heard. And we're starting to see a little bit of evidence of this when we look at what's happening with our children. It's such a double-edged sword, because on one hand, I hate that what is happening to our children is happening. But the other side of that is, I'm glad it's happening if that's what's going to move the needle, because we have many parents, even those that may not be professing Christians or maybe not sold out for Christ like some of the rest of us are. But when we started messing with their children, they're like, oh, hold up now. It
That's
was all
right.
right when it was just live and let y'all live. But
That's
now
right.
we're messing with our children. Now mothers are like, oh, heck no, not on our dime. So we've got to be able to get involved. We've got to allow our voices to be heard, because
Mm.
just like you said, we're the only ones that want to play nice. We're also the only ones in the closet these days. So we've got to get out of the closet, and we've got to stop being nice. I don't
That's
know that
great.
Jesus was ever nice. He may have been kind, and he may have been fair or just in some cases, but I don't know that I can't think of a whole lot of times that he was actually nice. I think that's that's a misnomer in our faith that we need to be nice. So yeah, I love all of those tips. Before we wrap up, can you tell us a little bit more about ICC?
Yeah, well, you can find us at persecution.org. We've been serving the persecuted for 25, 30 years now. And we do it overseas. In the West, we're just starting to see. I try to wake people up in the West to the political games that are going on, but we work overseas where the toughest persecution is. And so, as you can imagine, we do a whole bunch of bandaging, often of bodies. So people are beaten, pastors are killed. So we repair bodies, we repair lives. We take care of a family after a pastor is killed. We repair churches. So that's a whole bunch of bandaging. But then we also build, we push out the gospel into the toughest places on earth. And that means pushing out the scriptures. That means pushing out the gospel even through radio into North Korea. But then we work on Capitol Hill. So that's where I was kind of dragged into the political process. So we work on Capitol Hill and work with senators and congressional representatives, State Department, sometimes the administration, depending on who's in there. And then I do a whole bunch of this where we try to wake the world, but especially our brothers and sisters, to what's going on with persecution, what's going on with our brothers and sisters overseas.
I love it. You're doing a great work and you're a wealth of information. I know people are going to want to learn more. So, number one, how can they follow you on social media? What's your social media handle?
I will fill that in the church notes because we have a couple, so I won't torture everybody with every list, but we'll
Okay.
put it in the show notes. And also we have a free book. One of my books we'll give you for free if you just go and sign up for it. And we will mail that to you. And again, we'll put that in the show notes.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much for being here today, Jeff. Everyone, share this episode. I pray that it has blessed you like it has blessed me, and that you will go back and listen to previous and future episodes as well. Everyone, have a great day. Bye bye.